afternoon, good morning, wherever you guys are. I assume everyone's kind of wrapping up their day. Just want to welcome everybody to the AO Spine North America Fellows Kickoff Webinar. I'm the chair of the AO Spine North America Fellowship Committee. My name is Eric Klineberg. I'm at the University of California, Davis. This is supposed to be a fun, interactive webinar where we're going to talk a little bit about what AO Spine is, who's on the committee, what does that look like, what AO Spine education looks like for you as a fellow. And then I've invited two of my past fellows, Rich Hurley and Hurley Eleswarapu, to talk about how to get the most out of your fellowship year, and then also how to start looking for jobs and thinking about that transition from a fellow to an attending. Here is what your AO Spine North America Fellowship Committee looks like. Dan Gelb is the past chair, Ryan Spiker from Utah, Matt Coleman, Sam Cho, and Jeff Mullen are round out the committee. And you'll see them throughout the year. They'll be hosting webinars and participating in all of our education. Congratulations as a fellow for AO Spine North America. You are a group of elite surgeons who are being trained around North America, both in Canada and the US. We have 35 fellowship sites and train 106 fellows every single year. And so it is, I can certainly tell you personally, it's an incredible honor to be an AO fellow. It is a lifelong fellowship, so it just doesn't end 1 year out, but you get to be part of a prestigious group of surgeons and trainees, and you get to carry that tattoo on your shoulder for the rest of your life, which is pretty cool. You know, where's AO Spine fit in? So it's AO Spine is not just another society, but it's an association of like-minded surgeons. And so it interacts with all the different societies that you might also interact with, including NAS and SRS and AANS, both orthopedics and neurosurgeons. And so it's a nice kind of a conglomeration of surgeons that interact with all these different societies. The AO Spine Global Community has over 32,000 associates and 6,400 members across the 5 regions of North America, Latin America, Europe and South Africa, the Middle East and North Africa, and the Asian Pacific. You can kind of get a sense about what that membership looks like and who is there. In terms of educational activities, concepts, and programs, each year we run educational events in various formats, and they cover all aspects of spine surgery, reaching out to surgeons at every stage of your career. And those include fellowship awards, that's in-person education, and those are webinars. And webinars, as you can imagine, have been the mainstay over the past couple of years as we've all been dealing with this COVID epidemic. AO Spine membership, I'd like to encourage all of you to register as fellows. And so you receive a complimentary 2-year AO Spine membership. That allows you access to educational videos, online journals, global spine journal, and much, much more. And so take a look at it. It's kind of a fun place to poke around. It has webinars from past years. It has surgical cases. It has a host of variety of things. And so take a look. Please contact Kim Costa for instructions on how to register. Here's what the AO Spine website looks like. You can just search up AONA Spine, and it will kick you to this website. What you'll do is you go into that login bar and go ahead and put your name and password, and that'll get you here to your tools and dashboard. And really, that's what you want to look for. You press on your dashboard. What it'll do is it will give you access to your clinical library tools, your education, publications, so you can search that website and get access to a tremendous amount of information that's been all curated and carefully prepared just for your education. So please take a look at that. You can also get online journal access, and so you can look at the clinical library and tools, and then journals and publications, and that'll allow you access to those journals so you can get that information. You have full online access to the Global Spine Journal, European Spine Journal, Journals of Neurosurgery, Spine, and then also some discounted rates to other journals if you find that's necessary. There's also some special collections in the Global Spine Journal of selected articles and projects that have been put together. Again, just great educational information. So take a look if you have a chance. In terms of the upcoming fellow webinars and education, I hope that all of you have received an email. I think Abigail sent that out, talking about all the dates that you have available for educational processes. So those are both the fellows webinar dates, and those are listed here: October, November, December. There'll be fellowship dates in 2022, as well as the BAMF meetings. And so all that stuff should be on your calendar already, so you can block out those dates and make sure that you can participate and be part of this educational team. Excuse me. So there are a couple required courses for fellows that we'd like you to participate in. The first one will be this weekend, where we're going to be doing a controversies in complex spine surgery in Las Vegas. This will be an in-person course. Will be a mix of didactic and hands-on cadaveric training, and so look forward to seeing you all in person there if you're able to make it. Obviously, there are some travel restrictions that we fully understand. In addition, there's also will be the live BAMF Fellows Conference. This is an interactive Fellows Conference where we'll be discussing our research, having interactive discussions with your faculty and those faculty from around North America. Our plan is to still have that in person in BAMF. However, as you all know, we have to be flexible, and we'll see how things change as the year goes on. If there are any changes, that will be converted to a virtual BAMF, which has been very successful the last couple of years, but we certainly hope to have it in person. I don't want to say it's better that way, but it's better that way. In terms of research requirements and deadlines, all fellows are required to complete a research project during their fellowship year. We hope that you're able to do that with your faculty mentors. Your fellowship sites were chosen because of their excellence in producing research. Find a mentor and don't delay. So I would tell you, I think I tell all my fellows when they first start, hey, listen, make sure you do your fellowship research, and you want to get started early. I think all of them look at me and go, yeah, well, I'm on it. And then about halfway through the year, they go, oh, shoot, what do we need to do again? And so I know that when you first start, everyone's excited about doing the surgical cases, but don't forget, we want you to produce some excellent research, and the abstract deadlines are at the end of January so that they can be ready, prepared, and you can have a poster or in-person presentation at BAMF in March. There'll be a self-assessment survey that'll be sent out in September and April, the fellowship year. We're asking you to talk about the things that you feel confident in, those you don't feel confident in, and look and show us how your fellowship has educated you to become a surgeon in the future. So it's important to do that. And once you fill that out, we will receive your choice of an AO Spine Master Series book that we will be very happy to send to you for just doing your expected self-assessment work. There's also a fellow's handbook. There's an electronic copy. It gives us historical perspectives about AO. It gives some expectations, some tips and pearls, dates, deadlines, and how to stay involved after fellowship, which we certainly hope you all do. Again, we don't want this to be a one-year experience. We hope that this is a multi-year experience where you can continue to interact with not only your fellowship directors, but with the AO organization as a whole. In addition to the AO, you also have the Pew Synthes clinical relations team composed of Chris Burke, Ken Macaf, Maria Blaine, and Dan Lisker, and they will be reaching out to you at different meetings throughout the year. They can help you in terms of thinking about jobs, and can help you in terms of making connections for you. So please look for emails from them. They'll be interacting with you throughout the year, and I think you'll find that to be a positive experience. If you have any questions or concerns throughout the year, you want to reach out and say hello, you're welcome to email me at any time, eo.klineberg@ucdavis.edu. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. And certainly, again, congratulations. This is a really fun year. It's a busy year, but I think you'll look back at it as one of the most rewarding years in your career. And then with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a couple presentations again from Rich and Anath, talk about how to make the most out of your fellowship year. Just a couple of housekeeping items. So first of all, for the discussion and questions, there's a Q&A box, and I'd really hope that you guys could please feel free to be interactive through this discussion. I'll be monitoring the Q&A and maybe even interrupting Anath and Rich while they're giving their talks politely, as you can imagine, so that we can keep it interactive and fun. Because the whole idea is again, to make sure that we answer your questions to the best of our ability. And then please put those questions in, and at the conclusion of each one of those talks, we'll kind of open up for a little round table and talk about, opportunities that we had, opportunities missed, what we wish we could do differently, all those sorts of things. And so I'd just like to do a quick introduction for both Rich and Anath. Dr. Richard Hurley joined the Army in 2008 and did his medical school at UT Health Sciences Center in San Antonio. He did his orthopedic residency at Brooke, and then did his spine fellowship here at UC Davis. And now he is an Army spine surgeon at Brooke Army Medical Center. And he's going to talk about how to make the most out of your fellowship year. That's going to be followed by Hurley Eleswarapu. Anath is a graduate of the University of Chicago and then went to UC Davis for his fellowship. He's now an orthopedic spine surgeon at Mornifor Medical Center in New York City. And he's going to talk about how to make that transition from fellowship to practice. Start thinking about lessons learned from fellowship, how to get a job, how to be careful about the first job you pick, and then also realize that your first job is just that. It's just your first job. So with that, I welcome all of you, and Anath and Rich. I'd like to again thank you both for taking the time out of your busy practices and lives to prepare a presentation for our fellows again and share some of your wisdom. Rich, I'll turn it over to you first.
So I'm Richard Hurley. I'm a spine surgeon in San Antonio, like Dr. Klineberg said. And so my talk is on how to make the most out of this year. But first of all, congratulations. You have entered into a very rewarding career field. So cheers to you. Some advice for the year: simple things matter. So arrive to work early, be prepared to stay late, see patients, and work on refining your skills. Teach residents, but also don't be afraid to learn from the ones that you're going to be working with. And don't be afraid to admit when you don't know something, and then also be diligent about finding that answer when that happens. The year does go by exceptionally quickly, just like Dr. Klineberg was saying, so try and hit the ground running. I know many of you are already, six weeks in, I guess, huh? So you can think of fellowship like a buffet analogy. You are going to have many options, surgical treatment options that you're going to be exposed to throughout the year. And what I would say is you should take good notes of what may or may not work, especially things that obviously don't work. You want to learn how to treat a pathology, but a specific pathology. Take pictures. I mean, you can see here from this slide that I took pictures of complex setups when we would do them, because I think ultimately it helps you down the road when you wind up leaving fellowship and you're all by yourself for the very first time. Pre-op planning, I can't understate the importance of this. I find that this is exceptionally important even in my practice today. So in fellowship, we would use software programs to help us with templating surgeries. And there's this old phrase that we like to use in the military: plan your operation, operate your plan. So I mean, I think that this really helps you to avoid roadblocks when you're in the operating room. You can list out the steps. You can debrief with your attending after the case and see what mattered most in that particular case in their mind. And then it also gives you something to go by in the future if you wanted to do something different. Oops, my battery is struggling. Hang on one second. Sorry. All right. Hopefully that fixed my battery problem. I apologize. And then I would also stress, I didn't mention it, but get copies of your attending's preference cards before you leave. because there's many things on there that you will want. This is probably this slide here talking about creating a case log was exceptionally helpful for me in my planning during fellowship. So I created this spreadsheet, and from this spreadsheet, I would log essentially the diagnosis, the levels that we operated on, the age of the patient, the setting. So was it a primary or revision case? Was it cervical, thoracic, lumbar? And then the type of pathology, the attending that I operated with, and then I would create these hyperlinks that you can see there, and they would open up PowerPoint presentations for the particular case. So I would take those pre-op planning details and I would put them into a PowerPoint. And so it was kind of nice. This was kind of like the cornerstone, if you will, of my fellowship, and kind of going back, to reference really challenging cases later on. And then eventually I started logging complications. So things that, I would see, then I would go back and I would, log what the complication was and what our treatment was for it.
Complications in fellowship? That didn't happen, did it?
Yeah, well, just wait till you're out on your own. Case presentations. So I created a folder. Obviously, I was doing all of this work for preoperative planning purposes, but then also it kind of transitions into this case presentation. So it's kind of useful, especially now in like the counseling setting. I can bring up a de-identified case presentation, and I can show a patient this is what an ACDF looks like, or this is what a disc arthroplasty looked like, and we can talk about things together. So I find this to be very helpful. I also encourage you to make like an interesting x-rays folder. I mean, throughout the year, you're going to see some very interesting pathology. Dr. Klineberg had one of these, and I learned this from him. We would sit there in clinic after we'd see the morning clinic, and we'd be sitting there eating our lunches together. He'd pull out his interesting x-rays folder, and we'd look at the different pathologies that he'd seen over the years. And I just found this to be something that you could do. You can take a snapshot of it. You can, ask your attendings to talk about their interesting x-ray folders. It's just a nice conversation piece when you're trying to learn extra things during your lunch breaks. Research, I think Dr. Klineberg already mentioned this. It's very important to come up with a topic early. Most of your attendings that you're with are great educators. They have great ideas. They utilize, a lot of resources at their institutions to do their research. And so find a mentor early, seek their guidance on a research protocol, and then get started, right? I mean, meet your research team, get a protocol written, get the IRB approval process going. And the year is going to sneak up on you very quickly. So the importance of starting this process early is profound. And you really want to, if you come up with a good topic, you can have the opportunity to present that when you get to this Fine Fellows meeting, which is a lot of fun. Hopefully that's in person this year. This is something else that I utilized too when I was a fellow. There are a lot of existing note templates in the system. And what I did was I just tried to go in and we used Epic. So everybody's going to use different programs, but you can go in and you can snag different notes from different people, and you can make them your own. But then you can also take these things with you. So if you put in the work during your fellowship here, this is something, these note templates are something that you can take with you even after you leave. If notes templates don't exist, you can obviously take the opportunity to make them. Ultimately, it's going to help you in the long run, so you should be willing to do it. I found it to be very helpful going forward. If there's one like recurring theme that every fellow says at the end of the year, it's like, boy, I wish I'd seen a little more clinic. Don't miss the opportunity to round. Don't miss the opportunity to see clinic. Because ultimately, rounds is where you're going to learn to treat, immediate post-op complications. Clinic is where you're going to look at patients and sometimes, identify, new complications that arise, a year, 2 years, 3 years out, whatever the case may be. But anyway, I would say that don't avoid the opportunity to round and see clinic. Some programs are, I guess they don't require you to see, rounds post-op, or they don't require you to see very much clinic, but I would say seek out those opportunities because they're very rewarding. And a majority of you will also be asked to talk at grand rounds at some point during the year. Oh no.
I think the topic that, the points I think Rich makes, which I think are great, are don't forget to take notes during your fellowship and pay attention to stuff. I get asked questions by fellows all the time. and a fellow never asked me, how do I do a PSO, or what is my step to placing a screw? The questions are, I've got this gut patient and they've got a 4 or 5 degen spondy. What do you think I should do? Should I decompress it? Should I fuse it? Should I fuse it with an interbody? And so those questions are all answered in the clinic, and I agree with him. I think there is a tremendous amount to be learned there. The OR is fun. Don't not go there, obviously, but the clinic really is. There's a tremendous amount to be learned there. Anat, thanks for picking up the baton a little bit early. Hopefully, we'll see Major Hurley again.
And can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah, it looks perfect. Thank you.
So I'm Dr. Eleswarapu, as said. I'm at the Montefiore Medical Center in Bronx, New York. Just want to talk to you guys a little bit about making the leap from fellowship to practice. So this is from Office Space. The guy says, ever since he started working, every day has been worse than the day before, which means every time you see him, it's the worst day of his life. So if you pay very close attention to this talk, hopefully you can avoid having this conversation with your therapist a year from now. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about finding a job, what to do during your fellowship, towards the end of your fellowship to get ready for your job, what kind of things you can do when you first start your practice, and then some tips for life outside the hospital. So things to consider when you're picking your first job. I think location is obviously very important if you have a family. Volume is really important. You have to do enough cases to really feel comfortable doing these cases. You want to have enough cases to take the boards, things like just getting your name out into the community. It's important to just be operating and have people see you, be busy. So I think picking a job where they kind of have a plan in place for how you're going to get your cases starting out is very important. I think senior partners is really important, just partners in general that you're going to be working with. You will frequently find yourself asking for advice on cases ahead of time, or even in the OR, if there's someone across the hall that can come look at what you're doing. It's super important. And you're going to end up being kind of like your partners. So you should pick people that look like what you want to be like. And I think that's a good way to achieve your goals. Scope of practice. So if you have particular interests like tumor, pediatrics, these are like highly contested territory. So you want to make sure if there's like a peds ortho guy that likes to do all the scolies and you want to do peds, then that's stuff that you want to kind of be aware of ahead of time. Board certification, I think people don't always think about that, but it's really, really important for your first job. So the only job you'll be able to get easily without being board certified is your first job. And then if you ever want to change jobs, they're going to want you to be certified. So if you end up in a position where you're not very busy and it's going to take you years to have enough cases for boards, or if it's a place where they really are pressuring you to do a lot of cases right away and you have to change what your indications are, those are things that are going to be really hard. So I would make sure you factor that in. You want to go to a practice where they're going to allow you to grow slowly, sustainably, and have good documentation. Those are the things that are really important. I put money last. I think that's probably should be the least of your concerns for your first job. You just want to get comfortable, get into your practice, develop your routine, and then you can always try to figure out ways to make the money work out later. So this is what I would not recommend saying when you show up for your first interview. So how do you find a job? I think word of mouth is the best way. You can talk with your fellowship and residency attendings, your co-residents, especially if you have older residents that are already out in practice. They can be great. Implant reps, a little bit of a double-edged sword, but they tend to know a lot about different opportunities that are out there. You can email people. So if you want to be in a particular location, you can try to email different practices there. You can look at the different society websites. Those are not as useful as they used to be, but they're still a good way just to know who's hiring. I'd be very careful with recruiters. They get a commission based on you accepting a job. It doesn't really matter how long you stay at that job. So I would definitely do a lot of due diligence for any job you hear about through a recruiter.
There's also a good website called jobsinortho.com. It's from the AOC consortium, and it has a listing of job opportunities. It's a nice place to go look at. So jobsinortho.com.
That's really cool. I haven't heard of that one before. That's awesome. For your last few months of fellowship, right before you start your new job, I think you want to fill the remaining holes in your experience. So whatever case you just haven't seen that often, I think even if you're assigned to be with a particular attending, you can try You know, if there are certain attendings, like if you're an ortho spine fellow and you've never really worked with the neurosurgeons, you can always ask to kind of go scrub some cases with them and just see things that you haven't seen yet. I would take, like Dr. Hurley said, take pictures, take videos. You're gonna be surprised at what you can't remember when you get out there. You're like, man, I wish I remembered how they did this step. So the more stuff you have documented, the better. I put a picture here of the curved Fourier, which is Dr. Klineberg's weapon of choice. If your attendings have certain special instruments and you want to get your own version of that, now's the time to ask. You know, implant companies can be very interested in helping you with stuff like that when you're first starting out. And then I think you should ask to do the attending parts of the case. I think every attending has certain parts of the case that they don't like to give up. And when you get to the end of your fellow year, last few cases, that's a good time to kind of say, hey, can I walk over to the left side of the spine and see how the world looks from that side? And try not to be confused when you see things reversed like I was the first time. So that's what you should tell your attending. Stop trying to control everything and just like, I'm a huge hypocrite because I never let residents do certain parts of the case. So, but you have to fight for it at the end of your fellowship. Your first months in practice, you want to keep a positive attitude. So you're going to get the worst block time. You're going to get probably the worst secretary, the worst parking spot. So I'm just letting you know in advance, so you're not surprised when these things happen. But people are going to be looking at you. They're going to see, like, can you turn nothing into something? And as you start to do that, then a lot of the better opportunities will open up for you. So you always want to have a smile. You always want to be positive, no matter what you're frustrated about. You want to be diplomatic. So when you first show up to a new job or new practice, especially if you're straight out of fellowship, that's not the time to educate everyone else on how to do spine surgery, especially if they're people who've been there a long time. You just want to kind of, even if they do things that are different than how you're trained in doing them, just kind of, nod your head and ask them why they do things that way and try to learn from them. You should go to conference. I think it's, important to have a presence. People see you around. It's a good way to get referrals. You want to introduce yourself to people. So you just want to kind of be around, be positive, be a person, be likable. People are going to care a lot more about how likable you are than how smart you are when you're first starting out. And then you have to come up with a good answer for when patients ask you, how many times have you done this? So this is from Airplane, where the lady says, are you nervous? The guy says, yeah. Is this your first time? No, I've been nervous many times. So that's probably not a good, it might be how you feel, but you should come up with a better way to tell a patient whether you've done this procedure. So complications are inevitable. I think that you want to try to manage the complications by starting before the surgery. So anytime you've talked to a patient ahead of time and you've told them these are the things that can happen, then when it happens, they don't think that something unexpected has happened. They're a lot more trusting in you, and keeping the patient's trust is very important. You want to be honest, so you definitely want to tell them what happened, but you don't have to fall on the sword. So there's a feeling when you first start out, you feel really guilty and you kind of want to punish yourself for the complication, but I think that doesn't really help the patient to do that. You want to just focus on what needs to be done and what you can learn from it and just move on. So I was watching this show, Ted Lasso, where he says that the goldfish is the happiest animal in the world because it has the shortest memory. So I think that's how you have to be when you're starting out. Just be a goldfish. Don't perseverate. And again, I'm a hypocrite because I perseverate more than anyone, but that's an important lesson for you guys. Ask for help early. So, I was doing a microdisc last week and the nerve root looked really unusual. And so I called, my chief of spine surgery, who was across the hall, and asked him, hey, can you just come take a look at this? And he came in and he was like, yeah, I've never seen that before. So I didn't feel bad anymore. But I think it's important. I think you can use your phone and, or scrub out, call somebody. Anything that happens, I would just say, ask for help as early as possible. And the worst case scenario, if they don't know what to do, at least when you go into M&M, you guys are together now. So I would say ask for help as early as possible with any complication. And finally, give the patient your cell phone number. So you never want a patient to feel like I had a problem and the doctor didn't listen to me, or I was trying to call and nobody picked up, or I kept getting the answering service. Like, be very accessible to any patient that has a complication, and they will forgive you for the complication, but they'll never forgive you if you didn't notice, you didn't care, or you denied that it happened. So as long as you believe them and you try your best, I think they'll forgive any complication. So hopefully you'll be able to say this: complications arose, ensued, and were overcome. So life outside the hospital, I think it's just as important, as what you do in the hospital when you're starting out. So don't pick up any new bad habits. So if you've always had bad habits, you can keep them, but now's not the time to start a drug habit or anything like that. You want to finish your documentation before you go home. So I'm again a hypocrite. I have notes from clinic today that I haven't done yet, but I think to the extent possible, it's better to just finish your job, and then when you go home, you can just be at home. You want to keep in touch with your friends inside and outside of medicine. It's easy to lose track of the years as they go by. Take care of yourself mentally and physically. It's kind of, this is it. This is your job. This is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So it has to be sustainable. And finally, let family time be family time. So whenever you're done with your work and you go home, now's the time to hang out with your kids or your wife or your buddies, whatever it is. Make sure you don't let work invade your family time. So this is a picture of my 2-year-old daughter. I was going to go in last weekend to round on my patients, and she convinced me to take her to the aquarium instead. And frustratingly, the residents and the patients all seemed to be fine without me. But it was definitely memorable getting to take her to the aquarium. And she taught me a lot about marine life. I was very, very impressed by all the fish she knew. And I pretended that I knew what she was talking about the whole time. So this is what Dr. Klineberg told me, I think my first week of fellowship. He said, focus on taking care of your family, then make sure your patients are taken care of, and everything else comes third. So if you're ever confused and you're not sure about how to juggle everything, I think this is a great way to have clarity as you go through different phases of your career. So I wish you all the greatest of success.
Great stuff, Anath. Thank you. Rich, why don't we finish up your part of your talk? Sounds like your computer restarted. And then maybe we'll just have a little discussion between the three of us, and we'll talk about kind of some of the things we talked about. I'd love to hear about kind of what you guys do to de-stress, because I think that's an important part, particularly with COVID and everything else. I think all of us have had a little bit more anxiety than we might otherwise. And love kind of, and we'll wait for some questions come in with the Q&A. Hopefully everyone listening is still awake.
Yeah,
Rich, you want to take it away?
Sure, I just need 1 second while it loads here.
Okay. So Anath, what else do you do? What do you do to de-stress? How do you like figure out a way to leave the hospital and come home? Is there anything? Do you have any tricks? It sounds like you've got a little bit of a commute that I suspect you use some of that commuting time to kind of de-stress and come down from the tension in the hospital and make sure you don't bring that home.
Also, my 2-year-old daughter is the toughest boss I've ever had. So I usually come home and she tells me what the agenda is that day. So
that's amazing, because I know your wife.
Yeah, no. So usually I spend time with her, take her places, and it's just a great way to kind of forget about what's going on with work.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to, again, you do want to separate your family time and your home time and your work time. Work and taking care of patients it's a hard job. It's stressful. It's stressful as a resident and a fellow, and it's and I hate to tell you this, but it's still stressful, and as an attending, in some ways more stressful. And you do have to find a way to leave your work at home and leave your work at work and be home when you're at home. And some of that is, I kind of think of myself as a spotlight. And so I'm not a very good multitasker. What I do is I focus all my energy on whatever it is that's right in front of me. And then I quickly switch to something else. I don't know if that's the right thing or the wrong thing. That's just how I figured out how to do it. But you really do need to pay as much attention to your family as you do to your job. Because at the end of the day, you can get another job, but getting another family is a little bit more challenging. Rich, are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The only comment I would make about sharing the cell phone thing. So I did that for a while, and then I found that I was getting phone calls on Saturdays, at 9 p.m. about refilling my gabapentin, or whatever the case may be. So I decided to change that. My first set of business cards had my cell phone. My second round of business cards had my email address. So I felt like I could prioritize things a little bit better if I could answer it over email. Okay, can you see my desktop here?
Yeah, we sure can. Can you put it in presenter mode though? Yeah, there you go.
Is this where we ended or where we left off? Okay, perfect. Yep. So the grand rounds topic is probably important because you're going to have to designate a lot of time to reading it, into this topic. And so either you can pick a topic that you're familiar with, or you can try and pick something that you're not familiar with. I chose to go the latter. And I think it was beneficial for me because it opened my eyes to some things that I didn't know. And anyway, just allowed me to just kind of educate myself on an important topic that I knew was going to be something I'd see a lot of. So the other thing I would say is, this is something you definitely want to prepare for early. It's going to take a long time to prepare all the slides for it. It's an hour-long talk usually. And so I would just say, don't underestimate the importance of getting that going early. That was it. I mean, like the one piece of parting advice that I was going to have is just remain humble, because if you don't, you can easily get humbled in this career field. So I would just say, the other thing too is if you make a mistake, recognize it, own it, and make yourself better. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to just bury your head in the sand. And then the other thing is volunteer to do M&Ms. I think that's actually good. To me, it helped me get comfortable in an uncomfortable setting. And so I think that, in your fellowship program, if you have a complication and get selected for M&M, don't be afraid to go up and present it. And then these are just some of the things I got in feedback for fellowship that were meaningful to me. Dr. Klineberg, it says to me, I've seen it done better, I've seen it done worse, but never slower. And that's still true today. And then also, it's not a competition, but you're losing. And then the other thing I would say too, and I didn't highlight this, is that we all come from like training institutions where I'm sure we've all been exposed to different spine things, but it's okay to do things different. Like when you get to fellowship, if you don't, if you use a McCullough instead of a tubular retractor, that's okay. You should get comfortable using the tools of the trade that you're exposed to in fellowship. So don't go into the year thinking that you know better than your attendings, because you don't. And be humble and recognize that you still have a long way to go.
Great, thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
So for both you guys, tell me what do you think for kind of one piece of advice, one thing that either you did or you wish you had done during your fellowship year. Anything looking back that you say, boy, you know what, I'm really happy I did X and I really wish I had done Y. Nath, what do you think?
Yeah, I tried to scrub as many cases as possible, so definitely happy I did that. I guess the one thing I wish I'd done more is just like take more videos and photos of stuff, because you'll always think back to it, and it's so valuable to have that record of how your attendings did stuff.
Great, Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, making that spreadsheet for me was probably the best thing that I did during fellowship, because it allowed me to put all my thoughts together, right? I mean, it's something tangible that I could take away from fellowship. I could look at my case presentations. I could open up that log. I could see everything that I had done at a glance, and I could, it really became beneficial at the end of the year, because then I could really recognize my deficiencies, right? And I could see, oh, well, I've only done, X number of these MIST lifts or whatever. And so I could go back and I could try and do more of those things that I didn't do during the year. Well, I didn't see much in California, but that's okay. I can always come back and see what's happening.
You can come back anytime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe if there's one thing about my fellowship year that maybe I didn't do, was probably some of that family time, some of that California time.
It's good. So I think good thing to maintain a balance during your fellowship year as the rest of your year. I think that's good advice, Rich. I think that I keeping track of your cases, I think, is huge. You don't have to keep track of every single case. I mean, I think the more the better. And maybe that's something that we can help you with as AO Spine. Maybe that's something that we can help set up for you as a database, so you can store your cases a little bit easier, and videos and images. But I think you certainly want to keep track of the bigger cases and keep track of a couple of simple cases. I really liked, Rich, your thought about copying and pasting some of the operative notes. I think that's really, really clever. There's a lot of things that are in those operative notes that your attendings have perfected and tweaked throughout the years. And some of it is great for medical legal stuff. So it talks about patient positioning and how I put him on the bed, and we check neuromonitoring before the surgery, and all those little pieces in there that may end up protecting you down the road. And so I would encourage you to steal those. And when you make a PowerPoint presentation, I think you can have the history. You ought to have the operative note. You ought to have your preoperative plan. I think you ought to plan your surgeries before you do them, and then look at your execution and see what you did, what you accomplished, and what you thought you got right, and what maybe you didn't get as right as you wanted. I always feel like that's an incredibly good learning experience. It's kind of like the pre-op post-op conference that we have here, and that most of you have at your institutions. When you look back and talk about what you did and didn't do as well as you wanted, I think you really learn a lot and grow as a surgeon and as a person, and that helps you make better decisions in clinic and for your patients and for yourself. Um, did you have something, Rich?
Well, I
Sorry.
was going to say that pre-op, post-op conference is actually really good as well. So I mean, there's probably some people out in this audience are going to go back to teaching institutions. So if you don't do that, I mean, that has actually been very valuable even in my practice now. Coming back to San Antonio, we do a pre-op, post-op conference every Friday. So we go through the cases before for the upcoming week, and then we review all the X-rays for the last week, and that's actually been very good.
Is that something you instituted, or was that there before you got there?
I mean, I saw you guys do it, so I just stole it from you guys.
I think, I mean, I think that's great, and I'd love to empower the fellows too. That when you go to a new place and start up a new trend, if there's something that you found that worked well for you in fellowship, that made you deliver better care, boy, I would say what a great thing to start that up at your home institution. And it doesn't need to be an academic institution. It can be the Brooke Army Medical Center, or it can be the private practice down the road. And so I think paying attention to your patients and how they do is critical, and how you do surgically is also critical. Anath, give me a little bit. You have changed jobs a couple of times. Talk to us, maybe give some advice to the fellows about how to pick that right job, and about moving jobs. How big a deal was that? Was that challenging for you? Was that easy? Is that something, obviously you don't want to have to do it if you don't have to, but can you talk through that process a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I've already changed jobs twice in the first 5 years. I don't know if I'm the best person to give advice on this or the worst person to give advice on this. But no, I think it's fine. I think when you go out there, the jobs that are open during that 1 year when you're a fellow, it may not be the perfect job for you. So you have a deadline, you have to find a job by the end. But then after that, you can kind of settle in, start your practice, see what you like and don't like. And you can, your family will evolve too. You might have kids, things will change. So I think you just want to go to a first job where you have good senior partners that can support you, as you're learning, that you are going to be able to get through the boards. And then once you get through that, you can kind of see, does this make sense long-term, or do I see myself somewhere else? You'll be a lot more, I think, attractive to other practices once you've done a bunch of cases, and you can actually show them cases you did yourself and things like that. So I think I think you just want to find not necessarily the perfect job, but the things you want to prioritize when you're coming out of fellowship are having good infrastructure around you. So people who are senior partners that can help you with cases. You want to make sure that the documentation and everything is good in clinic, and that you just kind of feel comfortable with the practice. That's probably the biggest thing, is just feeling comfortable with the people.
And talk to maybe some advice for the fellows. When do you want to start looking for jobs? So we're September. Should they start looking for jobs right now? Should they start buffing up their CVs, or when do you think the right time is to start sending out some of those emails and start talking to recruiters or checking job sites?
6 months ago, but
Yeah.
no, you might as well just start now. I think it's especially with COVID, things are a little bit different. So I think that there's no reason not to start as early as possible. And just try to reach out, and even if they're not hiring, if they have an unexpected event happen and something opens up, they'll remember, oh, this guy emailed me and was interested. So I think it's just good to kind of express your interest early.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly. Rich, you have any thoughts about that? You were kind of heading back to the military, so I'm not sure you interviewed at a bunch of different places.
Yeah, I definitely did not. But I mean, I think, from what I learned from my co-fellow who was actively looking for jobs is that, he started that process early. You got to plan ahead. You need to, schedule interviews. You need to work out timing with your co-fellows so that, things get covered. But I think, yeah, start searching early, find something, secure something, and get moving in the right direction for sure. I'll be looking for one in about 4 or 5 years. So
Good. Well, we'll have you back on. You can tell us how that goes. The I so I t- so listen, I totally agree with both of you guys. I would say look early. I think that you want to, one of the hard things, the reason you're doing a fellowship is to get a job. Your fellowship is a failure if you don't get a job at the end of your fellowship. And so you really do need to look around. Your fellowship directors will be hugely helpful to you. They get lots of emails. And so make sure you talk to them early about what your practice is going to look like. Where are you thinking about being? It is nice to put some parameters around it. So if you say, I'll take a job doing spine surgery anywhere, that is not nearly as helpful as I want to be in New York at a private practice job or in academics. That helps at least narrow things down a little bit. You have to be careful. You can't be so specific because sometimes you make yourself so specific that there's no jobs in that community doing exactly what you want to do. But having some specificity is important. So it can be, hey, listen, I want to be in New England, not necessarily New York. And so I think a lot of those things can be helpful for you. And then I also, right now, where you did your training, where you did your fellowship. They know who your fellowship directors are already. And so there's no reason you can't start sending around emails and start, again, cold calling doesn't work terribly well, but starting to bug your attendings about, hey, listen, who do they know in whatever city you're interested in? Because I think that can be hugely helpful to you getting a job and securing it and thinking about it early. And the earlier you start, the earlier you start. There's nothing wrong with getting a job done and signed early. I don't think you need to start panicking about not having a job offer until the next year. So people are still negotiating salaries January, February, March. That's totally fine to not have a job until then. But if it starts getting me March and April, the answer is you're falling behind the curve, and you do want to have a job secured by that time. And then the only other thing I'd say about jobs is it's nice to have two. So it's nice to have two job offers in your hand that you can pick between. You'll learn a lot about your job offer, about what you should ask for based on what offers people give you. And it's just hard to know what you're allowed to ask for or not ask for until you have a job or two offers in hand. Um, how about your practices now, gentlemen? What do you when you look back and you think about your fellowship? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is there anything in your fellowship that you wish you could have gotten more or different out of? Would you have gone to more meetings? Would you have gone to other conferences? Were there things that you felt like you needed to get out of your fellowship you didn't, or any advice you would give to fellows that are around the country? I can take it, by the way. Be nice, but I can take it.
I would say that we didn't do a whole lot of minimally invasive surgery together, but I also found, going in that direction, doing a little bit of minimally invasive now is not that it's not that challenging, right? Because the open anatomy. So maybe I'd be slicker or faster, if I had been exposed to a few more that way. But I don't think it's a detriment to where I was or where I trained. And then with regards to the meetings, I did go to several meetings. I went to the Global Spine Congress. I went to WOS. I did go to a few meetings, and I found them to be somewhat helpful. I think that I don't think there were any additional meetings I would have necessarily gone to.
Not anything different.
Yeah, the attendings at Davis were very good at using sarcasm to educate us in the OR. So I wish I had developed my sarcasm skills a little better before I had my own residence.
You were good to start off with.
No, I think that my only advice is just keep an open mind. I think when you come out of a particular training institution, you think that's the best way to do everything. And then when you go in the real world, you're going to see people that do things so many different ways. And I think just keep an open mind. You might see things that make sense in a different population, different hospital, and you don't want to be too dogmatic when you first start out, because that will rub people the wrong way. And you may be missing out on like better ways to do things.
Yeah, that's both great pieces of advice. So if you're doing a fellowship and you perceive there's a deficit or perceive that there's something you want to get more out of, go get extra training. I think that's a great idea, Rich. I like it. We don't do a ton of MIS surgery. That's okay, and that's then you know what you need to go look for, and you want to make sure you can be trained well and doing it a way, and then you can go out and you can modify it. And Anath, I think your advice is spot on. Right, you need to figure out what works. You need to find a bunch of different kinds of tools and then figure out which tool works best for you and works best for your patients. And you're going to find that sometimes, right? I was hired here at UC Davis to be the minimally invasive specialist, and you can see how well that worked out for me. And part of that is that it just wasn't what I was seeing. I was seeing been operated on 15 times. And when you see that, one more MIS surgery is probably not the right answer. I'm going to open up the question. I don't see a lot of Q&A or questions. If anyone has any questions, just put them in the chat. We just have another probably 4 or 5 more minutes. I'm going to try to end this on time at the top of the hour to be respectful of everyone. But if you have any burning questions, please feel free to ask. If you don't have any questions now, that's okay. You can reach out to myself or Dr. Hurley or Dr. Eleswarapu. We're certainly happy to answer anything online or offline. The other thing that I just wanted to touch on briefly, if we don't have any questions, we did too good a job of our presentations. We'll have to screw that up next time. It is, what about, Anath, I liked you talked about asking questions, loading the boat when you have complications. Talk to me about how did you ask for advice before cases? Did you involve other attendings? Did you talk to your fellowship directors? Did you talk to other people in the AO? How did you go about when you had a complicated case? Was there some progression or change or what you've done over time?
No, it's the same. I mean, I would ask for help. Even when you don't think you need help, it's just good to ask sometimes, because you get unexpected things. And, you have to figure out different attendings. Like some of them, if they give you advice, they want you to do exactly what they say. And other people are more open about that. So be careful with it. But I think you're going to learn so much just for asking someone. It's amazing if you ask an experienced attending, they'll know so much about the case without you telling them just by looking at the x-rays. It's kind of unbelievable sometimes. And you'll learn a lot. I think it's good to early on email your fellowship mentors, because you're kind of used to their way of thinking, and what they say will make sense to you. But when you go to a new hospital, it's also just a good way to kind of network with the other surgeons that are there and let them feel like you're kind of respecting their experience and stuff. So I think it's important to ask for help.
So get advice from your fellowship mentors, right? Because we're available to you anytime. But also, I like that getting advice from the senior people there. It both builds that camaraderie and that trust and that kind of mentorship at your local institution, which I think is, I agree with you, critically important. Rich, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so one thing that we did when we were fellows as a class, we went, I saw that there was an advertisement when you were first getting started about the upcoming course in Las Vegas. I think we attended a course similar to that, right? But we were in Boston or something. Yeah. So at that meeting, I got the contact information for like, I don't know, 25, 30 people, right? So we started like a WhatsApp conversation. And even to this day, like, one of the fellows will come on and say, "Hey, I've got this complicated case. I'd like to hear people's opinion on how to treat it." So, I mean, I still even yesterday I got a question about something on there. So that's one thing that I found helpful. So, in other words, get to know your group of co-fellows and start a relationship with them now. And then, I mean, the pre-op, post-op conference, like we talked about, we get to answer a lot of those questions. I email you cases. There's something else that, we started in San Antonio called Spine and Wine. It was something that it happening a long time ago, but the meeting had kind of dissolved. And anyway, we started it back up, but it's like a way for all the neurosurgeons and spine surgeons in San Antonio to come together over dinner once a quarter. And so we present really complicated cases there and get people's opinions. It's fun too, because you get a whole slew of answers to complex problems.
Well, and I think that, so I love that. It's one of the things that we love doing in the AO too is all of you guys are going to see are these fireside chats where we sit and have discussions about cases, and we get everyone all fired up, and
Those are the
usually Jim Harrop's in the background yelling at everybody, and so I think it is super fun to have a discussion and to talk about the cases. Um, I I love everything you guys said. So ask your mentors, talk to people locally, engage the community and team that you're in, because I think that does make a big difference, and enjoy it. Any last words of wisdom, gentlemen?
have fun.
Yeah, it's the best year, one of the best years of your career, so just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rich and I thank you very much for spending the hour with us and all the time you guys spent doing the cases. And I remember you both very fondly during my career. I saw some great pictures of both of you. Rich, I think I got you eating the largest T-bone steak or tomahawk steak I think I've ever seen. And Anath, I've got pictures of you in the operating room putting screws in sideways and some absolutely twisted kid we had. So. I thank you both for your time, and it was great to see you. And to all the fellows and fellowship directors, again, enjoy the year. My former partner used to talk about it. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It's so much information and so much stuff that it's overwhelming in the beginning. Just pace yourself, enjoy the year, drink whatever you can, and realize it's not just one year of learning. This is the beginning of a lifetime of learning. And I can promise you, I'm still learning stuff every day, and from my patients. And make sure you understand what a privilege it is to do what we do. We've got incredible jobs. They're stressful and they're hard, and the complications suck. But boy, when we get that ability to help those patients and make a huge difference in their lives, it really is an incredibly rewarding profession. So enjoy. Congratulations. Welcome to AO Spine and AO Spine Fellowship. And I wish you all the best and hope you have a wonderful year. And I'm sure I'll see you multiple times throughout the year for some of these educational webinars. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.